Well, hello, church. I hope this message finds you doing well and had a great Memorial Day weekend together. I wanted to share some information with you about an envelope you're going to be getting in the mail, probably today or tomorrow. You've heard us talking about the reopening procedures here at the Mesquite Church of Christ. You've heard that there was a reopening committee that was put together and that they would be coming up with some guidelines for the reopening for in-person services at the Mesquite Church of Christ. Uh, that's what I'm here to talk with you about in our time together. You should have received an envelope in the mail that looks something like this with your address on it. In that envelope, you'll find 5 items. The first item you're going to find is a letter from your shepherds. The elders wrote this letter to kind of give you a preface of what you're going to find in the envelope. And I just want to go to this letter in a highlighted paragraph that you'll find in this letter from the elders, which says, regardless of how you feel personally regarding the safety measures required, we ask that you accept the recommendations of our committee as we all do our best to look out for one another, especially those most vulnerable to us. In a nutshell, what the elders are saying there is that there's no simple way to do this. There's no cookie cutter pattern that works for every congregation. Every congregation is unique, and the committee that they called together, they called 6 men together, including myself, and to come up with a process, some guidelines to get us back into in-person services. They asked me to chair that committee. I was glad to do that, and we worked together to present the elders with some guidelines that we thought would be helpful in reopening the church, the congregation here in person in our facilities. And the guidelines is the second thing that you'll find in the envelope. It looks like this. It's 3 pages, 2 pages front and back, and then a third page. As you look at it and look over it, it's pretty detailed. There's a lot of thought and a lot of consideration that went into this process. And again, you know, you may not see it the same way. You may not, you may not be in full agreement across the board with this, and we understand that. But again, I want to take you back to that highlighted paragraph in the letter from the elders. Try to be as supportive as you can, because I think if we roll this out and try to do the best that we can, we'll get something meaningful from it. Going to the front page of the guidelines, I want to share a few things. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but there's a few things on each page that I want to point out to you from the opening guidelines. Number one, if you look at the top of the page, it talks about the church remaining closed to certain activities, to all activities other than worship services. As the state begins to open and we begin to get more guidance and other things, activities will begin to come back online, and that's going to take some thought for those things to happen. Until that time, online services will continue. That's not going away. So rest assured that you'll be able to continue to do that at home if that's what you choose to do and you feel safest doing that. But I want to remind you of something. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 24 talks about the assembly and assembling together. And that's something that we want to get back to as quickly as we can and as safely as we can. So if you're having questions about whether in-person services right now are for you or not, rest assured, the online services will continue. Our Zoom Bible classes for the ladies, the teens, and the men will continue on Wednesdays and Thursday evenings as it has been. And if you need access to the building to facilitate any of your ministries, that will be available to you as well. If you don't have access to the building, contact the office or contact Ron Graham or Troy Graham, and they'll make sure that you're able to get into the building as you need to. With regard to Governor Abbott's order, for our congregation, the target date to reopen in-person services is going to be Sunday, June the 14th. And on June the 7th, the Sunday prior to that, we're going to do a soft opening. And what we mean by a soft opening is the elders, the ministers, the deacons, staff, and their families are going to be here in person on June the 7th to go through these procedures that you hold in your hands to see how well they work. If there's some things that need to be tweaked, if there's some bugs that need to be worked out, we want to use the soft opening in order to do that. And so, again, you're going to see as you read through the document what that looks like. And I just want to share something with you right now while I'm thinking about it. Next week, I'm going to record a video that takes you from the parking lot, in the door, through the service, out the door, back to your car in the parking lot, so you know exactly what you're going to see and exactly what you're going to experience when you come back to the building for in-person services. So that video will be coming next week. It'll be a complete walkthrough, so you know exactly what to expect when you come back. So again, those dates, June 7th is a soft opening, and then June 14th, Lord willing, anybody who wants to come to an in-person service will be able to do so here at the Mesquite Church of Christ. I want to share something else with you here on the first page of the guidelines, and it's point number 3 under Governor Abbott's current order. Before attending services, if you don't feel well, you need to stay home. If you've been around someone that has not felt well or maybe displaying symptoms of anything, you need to stay home and watch and participate in the online service. And again, at the very bottom of this page, I want you to notice something and make sure that you're aware of it. Attendance for in-person services is strictly voluntary. It's not an expectation, and there's no obligation to attend the in-person services once they begin whatsoever. So I want you to understand that very clearly. As you turn the page over to point number 5, we're going to share some things that are already in place. In order to social distance at a 50% capacity, okay, and at 6 feet of distance, we were able to assemble 117 chairs in the fellowship hall, social distance 6 feet from one another in groups of 4 and groups of 2. So with that setup, we can put 117 people in the fellowship hall for a service at one time. And you may be asking yourself, well, why are we going to use the fellowship hall as opposed to the auditorium? Well, there's a number of reasons. Number one, the fellowship hall is a lot easier to clean than the auditorium. There's a lot more surfaces, songbooks, pews, fabric, etc. in the auditorium that has to be cleaned and would be a lot more difficult to clean, especially between services, if we held services in there. And you may be thinking, well, the auditorium is huge. Yes, it is. But when you social distance at 50% capacity and 6 feet, you don't gain that many more seats in the auditorium than you do in the fellowship hall, believe it or not. And so right now, the decision by the leadership is to begin in-person services in the fellowship hall. And again, there's 117 seats in the fellowship hall. And you may again be thinking to yourself, well, there's a lot more of us than there are seats. I'm getting to that here in a little while. So just be patient with me. In order to do that, it's the very next point under point 5, which is point number B, letter B. 3 worship times will be offered. There will be 2 English services and 1 Spanish service offered in the fellowship hall. And each one of those services has to finish on time. And we're putting an hour time limit on that. And we've been hitting that time pretty consistently with our online service. So we feel like that's something that we can do. And you may be asking yourself, well, why do we have to finish on time? We have to finish on time for the next service to begin. But in order for the next service to begin, we have to have the fellowship hall thoroughly cleaned per the governor's orders. And so our normal cleaning service that cleans our building has been gracious and said, hey, we'll clean up between services. So we need about a 20-minute window between services for the cleaning crew to come in and disinfect everything per the governor's order before the next service can begin. And so that means we have to finish on time. We have to enter the fellowship hall and exit the fellowship hall in a very orderly fashion. We have a plan for that here in the guidelines. And so, again, take a look at that, but I want to continue to point out some things here as well. All the English services are going to be repeat services. And so here's the service times. The first service will begin at 8 a.m. And this service is designed for folks that are 65 and over, or those who have some sort of health compromise like diabetes or heart issues, people who may be compromised in their systems. So 65 and over, and those who feel like they're compromised from a health perspective. And again, let me point this out. Let me stress: voluntary, strictly voluntary. If you want to come to an in-person service, you're over the age of 65, or you have some sort of health compromise, the 8 a.m. service is designed specifically for you. The second service will be at 9:30 a.m. And this will be the online service. Our online services have been streaming at 10 a.m. That time frame is going to move up to 9:30. So the 9:30 service, the second English service, is going to be our online service beginning on June the 14th. Okay? And entry for these services will be no sooner than 10 minutes prior to service time. So for the 8 a.m. service, entry will begin at 7:50 a.m. For the 9:30 service, again, take a look. Entry will be at 9:20 a.m. And so the third service will be the 11 o'clock service, and this will be for the Spanish ministry, and that will be also an online streaming service for our Spanish at 11. And so those are all the services that we have technically scheduled for right now, but we have the option, if necessary, and you'll see it there in the guidelines, for a 1:15 p.m. service in English. And it may turn out that that's the service that you prefer to go to in person. And we'll talk more about selecting what service you want to attend here in just a couple of minutes. And so as you look down page 2, you're going to see under point number 5, letter D, attendees for each service will be determined by U.S. postage, snail mail, registration through the church office to Jackie to Woody by name and how many seats are required for your family. This will be on a first-come, first-served basis. When you register, you will be assigned a seat for the duration of this phase, and this will be the service and the seat that you and your family members occupy each week. You will receive confirmation for your registration from the church office. Enclosed is a form that you will complete in order to register for in-person services. If the first service that the member wishes to attend is full, they will be placed in the second service of their choice. So when you pull out this card, which should be enclosed in the envelope, you're going to order the services, okay, by 1, 2, or 3, the 8 a.m., 9:30 a.m., or 1:15 p.m. service, okay? Over on this side, you're going to select the number of seats. So, for instance, for my family, we would pick the 9:30 a.m. service, and we would select 4 seats for that service because I'm going to be sitting up front anyway. But my family would choose 4 seats at the 9:30 a.m. service. You should find one of these in the envelope. And so you may be asking, why are we doing it this way? Well, number one, we only have 117 seats. Okay? Why are we doing this by snail mail? Well, we need to get that information back from you, for one thing, in order to place you in seats for a service. But also, we're not doing this by email because not everyone in the congregation has email. And so if we send out a mass email to everybody who has it, that would give people with email a kind of an unfair advantage over those who don't. And so by sending it out by snail mail and having it come back to us by snail mail, it gives everybody kind of equal footing on the first come, first served basis of getting their seats reserved. And you may be thinking, well, you know what? I'm not planning on coming back to in-person services anytime soon. And that's fine. Again, it's totally voluntary. There's no obligation whatsoever. But Lord willing, at someday, some point, sometime, and probably, you never know, in the near future, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. I would go ahead and fill this out for the time that you want to be here when you come back for in-person services, because we have a plan for the event that the services fill up. Again, we can only put 117 people in a service at a time. So the question comes up, okay, what if I want to go to the 9:30 service and it's full? Well, we're going to give you the option. You can either go be placed in your second choice, or we have overflow areas in the fishbowl and other areas upstairs in the education building, Building C, where you can attend an in-person service that is live streamed from what's going on in the fellowship hall. And so now you kind of see the importance of getting these pink cards back to us, getting them back to Jackie as soon as possible so that you can be placed in the seat. And you'll be like, well, what does that look like? This is what it looks like. You should have a seating diagram of the fellowship hall. And you see where all the seats are, and they're all numbered. You have rows by letter and seats by number. You may notice these gray boxes right here, these gray seats. These gray seats are reserved for visitors. And so if we consistently have a situation where we don't fill all of those seats, then those seats may go back out and be available for people who want them. But we certainly don't want to get in a situation where someone comes, they know that we're open for services, and then have to tell them we don't have a seat for you. So we want to make sure that we have seats available for our visitors as well. But this is the seating diagram. And so when you look at this and you fill this card out, all we need to know is which service, okay, which service and how many seats. We cannot reserve specific seats, okay? That's why first come, first serve is very important. When you fill this out, okay, and you send it in to Jackie, Jackie's going to place you somewhere in this seating arrangement. Once she does that, she will take the seating arrangement and she will mark where your seats are, and she will send it back to you so that you know what service you're attending and what seats you're going to be occupying in that service. And again, you may be thinking, wow, yeah, that's what I was thinking too about how to address this issue. As the committee got together and it's like, well, how do we do this? This is the best plan for our situation that we could come up with to address our specific situation in our facilities. And so, we encourage you to be supportive in that. Flipping this page over, we need to understand that once members arrive on campus, you need to remain in your vehicle until 10 minutes prior to the service. When you get out of your vehicle, when you exit your vehicle, we are strongly encouraging that masks be worn. In fact, we're taking it up to the point, almost to the point of saying you need to wear a mask. And so we strongly encourage that masks be worn once you step out of your vehicle and you begin to come into the building for the service. What you're going to find in the parking lot right here next to the fellowship hall, Building C, you will see cones that are spaced out 6 feet in distance, leading up to the ramp of the covered sidewalk and then back toward the southwest door of the fellowship hall. We ask that you observe those cones in 6 feet of distance while you're waiting to come into the church building, into the fellowship hall. Once you get to the door, there will be a table there that has hand sanitizer, and if you need a mask for you. Now again, everybody should have a mask by this point. And so we would ask that if you have a mask, please provide your own. But if not, we'll have one for you. And we'll have hand sanitizer there as you're entering into the door. There will be all kinds of signs on the door about guidelines that we're required to post by the state to show that we're informing people of the guidelines that they need to observe. And then once you enter the door, to your left, there will be a table with individual communion kits. And they'll be spaced out on that table. And as you walk in the door, pick up one of those communion kits, one for each member of your family. Try to touch only the ones that you're going to use. And then you will proceed down that wall. And as you look at the seating diagram, you'll come in. You come in right here, okay? And as you walk in and come down the aisle, okay, let's say you're on row C, seats 11, 12, 13, and 14. This right here is going to be your row. So as you're walking into the fellowship hall, okay, grab your communion kits, continue down the west side wall of the fellowship hall, down to your row, to your right, to the seats that you've been assigned, and have a seat. And then when services are over, there's a couple of things you need to be mindful of. Number one, the person who's making the announcements at the end of services, they will handle the announcements and they will handle the contribution prayer. And the reason why is as you're heading out the door, and you'll be dismissed from the back to the front, funeral style, so that we exit in an orderly fashion and we maintain that social distancing per the governor's order. As you exit the fellowship hall, there will be a tray, a plate on your right-hand side as you're exiting the door to place your contribution. And then as you exit the door, there will be a garbage can there to drop off your used communion kits. Then you proceed back out to the parking lot, and then once you enter your vehicle at that point in time, you can remove your mask. Now again, family, I know that this is pretty intense. I guarantee you none of us ever thought that we would have to go through a process like this in order to attend in-person worship services. And again, I cannot stress enough, this is voluntary. You're under no obligation whatsoever to participate in in-person services. But at the same time, I know that so many of you want to be together, that so many of you want to experience singing together, even if it's wearing a mask, to see your brothers and sisters. And so this has been set up in order to do that, and to do that within the guidelines that the governor has set for us. And so as you look through these guidelines and you look at all the different access points, there will be certain exits. For instance, the glass doors from the fellowship hall that go straight to the office, that's going to be an emergency exit only. So let's say you have to go to the restroom during the service. You would stand up, go back the way that you came into the fellowship hall, go to the back of the fellowship hall. Instead of going straight out the door that you came in, you're going to turn to your left and go through the glass doors by the elevators in the kitchen, and then follow that around to the restrooms, and then come back the same way. Again, all of that is laid out here in the guidelines. And just a reminder, I'll be shooting another video that takes you from the parking lot into the building, through the service, and back out to your car in the parking lot again, so you know exactly what it looks like when you come for in-person services. And so please take a look at this. And on the very last page, you'll see something that looks like this right here, which is an example of this pink card that shows you what it looks like when you fill it out. And please look that over. Get those cards back to us as quickly as you possibly can, so that Jackie has an opportunity to look at the seating diagram and to figure out where everybody's going to be placed in each service. And then once she has you placed, again, she'll mark the seats where she has you placed, and she'll fold this up, put it in an envelope, and send it right back to you, so you know exactly where you're going to sit and exactly what service you're going to be in when you come back for in-person services. Something else you're going to find, once you fill out this card, you're going to find a return envelope that's already stamped to go right straight to Jackie. So again, fill this out as quick as you can and place it in the envelope, drop it in the mail so that Jackie can get it and get you a seat reserved as quickly as possible, and then turn that around and get it to you. Family, this has been unprecedented times. None of us have been through anything like this before. And so as we begin to open the country back up, and we begin to open the church building back up, the church never closed, okay? The church continues to thrive and to grow even in these difficult times. And with the online services that we've been blessed with, it's been great to see everybody online. And let me just take this time right now to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your support. It has been incredible for me to see the positive feedback and the great comments and the love and support that you've shown me during this time. And thank you so much. You have no idea how much that means to me personally. And again, thank you so much. But as you look at these guidelines and you prayerfully consider whether you're ready to step back into in-person services with your brothers and sisters, again, it's voluntary. You're under no obligation to do so. You don't need to compromise your safety or your state of well-being in any way whatsoever. You can continue to participate online if that's what you feel like you need to do. But if you want to step back into in-person services, this is the way that the committee and that your leadership, your elders, your shepherds have deemed that we need to do this. And so again, there will be a soft opening on June 7th with the leadership, the elders, the deacons, the ministers, the staff, and their families to go through these guidelines and to see how it works and to work out any bugs before you guys ever step foot in the building. But if everything goes well, we're going to open up the building for you to come and to worship together on Sunday, June the 14th. And so again, please be prayerfully supportive of this process. Thank you so much for your love and your prayers. And Lord willing, we're going to see one another again in person very, very soon. God bless you. If you have any questions at all, feel free to contact contact Jackie. Send your questions by email or call Jackie through the church office, and she'll make sure that the elders and the leadership gets those questions, and we get an answer back to you as quickly as possible. We want to make this process as smooth as it can be. But be sure, if you have a question, concern of any kind, contact the church office, and we'll get back in touch with you as soon as possible. God bless you and your family.